Hello. So here we are again. So as I said last week, I'm going to start making this beard. I'm going to try to make it as procedural as possible. I say that because we are not doing any manual grooming, but I am going to paint a texture map. So it's not going to be 100% procedural, but it will be almost there. So this one should be a short live stream, and hopefully the process will be very fast. So this will be more or less the final result. We are going to make this beer with this uh, curling effect and freeze variation in the length. This is a single hair object, so it's all together. I'm going to add those fine, very small hairs to help blend the beard with the skin. That's it. But I think for the new version that I'm going to make for this beard, I'm going to create a second hair object for the mustache here, because I want to test something. So yeah, let's jump into this. First, I'm going to open a few references that I have laying around. Give me a second. I should have done that before going live, but you know how it is. There they are. So I want the beard to be this shape like this. Whoops, no, not this. This is the tool. This shape like this, and I want it to have this curling effect like this one here. But it's not going to be too long. And the reason that I want to make the mustache as a separate hair object is because I think it will be way easier to groom it like this, to stylize it like this. So the mustache, I think, is not going to be as procedural as the rest of the beard, but the rest should be really easy and quick. So then I'm going to create a short version of the same beard, and hopefully without spending too much time on it. It's going to be exactly the same shape as this, but shorter, like this, and with a fading effect over here, like this, and show flow to the back like this. So let's keep looking at the references, and I have one here for the front to see how the strand curling looks on the front. So this is what I want to do, this freezing effect and these fly out strands like this, shorter over here, blend with the skin like this. I want this area to have less density than this area like this and blend like this. If you see this area here, we have like two levels of length, one here and another here, and then the beard will blend in the middle here. So the zero length and the full length will blend in this area. So what I'm going to show here, I've shown this in other lives, but the difference will be that I'm going to try to avoid doing manual grooming as much as I can. So I want to show you another way to do things, to do things quickly, that will allow you to do more version of the beard, and the hair will be more, what is the word for this? The hair will be more portable. You will be able to create more versions of it in case if you need like an animation of the character aging or something like that. So let me show you what I meant. I'm going to show you a GIF that I have over here. So why is it not on top? Oh, that's strange. Oh, maybe I have to, okay, now. So this, here you can see that I have two versions of the beard in the same object. Long beard, short beard, and middle length beard. So I want you to have that, to be able to reuse your hair for different shots and yeah, that. So let's go with that. So that's it. To summarize, we are going to create this type of beard with clumps and curling and frizz, and different levels of length. Let's go ahead. Let me close the scene to save RAM, just in case. And put my references aside. Also, I have also this one to see better the strands. This is a close-ups that looks a bit better than the other, so I can see very well the hair strands and the curling. So we are going to use that one as well, and this one similar to this. Yeah, just to have some to have different references for the same thing. So my references are here. Okay, so I have my scene here, my scene ready. This time, to create the hair, I extracted a mesh from the main mesh. From the high polygon mesh, I extracted a low polygon mesh to create character there. And you might wonder, why extract so much mesh? Why don't just extract the area where I'm going to create the beard that should be this area here, right? Well, it's because I will use the same mesh to create the eyebrows, the eyelashes, and to create the peach fuzz hairs that will blend the beard with the eyebrows and the rest of the hair. So we will have more than one hair object in the same mesh. So I think this is better to have the less amount of meshes as possible. So I extracted this big chunk of mesh to work on that, like this. Let me reveal this back. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is save another version of this scene. So this is going to be really basic, right? I'm going to try to describe every step that I do and why I'm doing it. So it will be helpful or useful for people that don't know anything about grooming or about Ornatrix. So here we have the Ornatrix shelf. Here we have a bunch of icons to generate hairs, to add details, and to add different effects to the hair. So to generate hair, we need a mesh. We need what we call a distribution mesh. In the distribution mesh is where we are going to generate all the hair. Second, your distribution mesh should have UVs. So this is the UVs of the mesh, and yeah, your mesh should have UVs, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. So to generate the hair, I'm going to select the distribution mesh, right? And I'm going to go here to add hair to selection, to this icon here, to this plus icon here. So just go ahead, and we have two preset. When we select a mesh, a polygon mesh to generate hair, we get two preset, one for feathers and one for fur. In this case, I'm going to use the fur ball preset and click create. This will of course generate a bunch of hair that is not a good, it does not look good for what we want, but we are going to start tweaking this to accomplish what we are looking for. So this will automatically add some nodes and open the operator stack. The operator stack is where you are going to build your groom, your hair, right? So it flows from top to from bottom to top, starting with the distribution mesh. This is the shape node of the distribution mesh. If I select this shape node, you can see how the mesh here is selected. The next one, wait, I'm going to turn them off. To turn them off, you click this light bulb here. So the next one is the guide from mesh. Guide from mesh node will scatter a bunch of guides on the distribution mesh. Yeah. Based on the settings that we use in the attribute editor here. So when we select a different node, we get here in the attribute editor, we get the settings of the selected node, right? So we are here in guides from mesh. Guides from mesh will scatter guides on the mesh based on those settings. First, we have here the distribution type. The distribution type is the way that the guide routes will be scattered on the mesh. First, we have, well, by default, we have even distribution. This will try to have an even distance between the roots of the guide. As you can see, it will try, it will not be perfect, but it will try. This one is by default, but here we have from left to right, we start with uniform distribution. It will try to have a uniform distance between the roots. So you will have uniform distributed guides. Then we have UV, random UV distribution. It will try to randomize the roots based on the UVs. So this is why our mesh needs to have UVs to be able to use most of those distribution types, and also because we are going to paint some hair maps to tweak the length of the hair, so we need UVs, and also because we are going to add a shader to the beard. So okay, next we have the random area distribution. This one will try to randomize the roots based on the surface area of the mesh. Next we have random phase, similar to this one but based on phase. Next we have vertex distribution. This one will add one guide on each vertex of the mesh. You may want to use this when you are creating, for example, a fur for an animal, but consider having a low poly version of the mesh, or it will create too many guides. Then we have face center distribution. This will add one guide at the center of each face. So this one is also based on the topology of the mesh. So I repeat, consider having a low poly version of your mesh. Uneven distribution, which is by default, and I already said what this one does. Next we have the guide count. This is where you decide how many guides you want in your room. Like this. By default we have 300. Then we have distribution map. Here is where you are going to connect a texture map to decide the area where you want the hair to grow. It seems like the stream is having problems. Let me check. Oh, it's back. I think it's back. You guys, let me know if the audio is good, if the video quality is decent, and if you see any problems in the stream. So distribution map, here we can connect a texture map to define the area where we want the hair to grow. So I'm not going to explain every parameter because that will take too much time. I will only explain what we are going to use with the beard and what is relevant right now. We also have a displacement map. For example, I'm going to show you why and why we can use a displacement map. For example, the mesh that I'm using to generate the hair is a low poly version of the high of the main mesh. Let me show you how dense is the main mesh. You see you see how different they are, right? So the low poly version of the mesh doesn't have enough details to follow the shape of the main mesh. So the guides, the roots of the guides will end up inside the main mesh. So sometimes you may end up with hair that the roots go inside the mesh and doesn't have the right height or the right displacement. So this is where displacement map comes into use. So if your main mesh, if you are using a displacement map in your main mesh for the pores, wrinkles, you should also connect the same displacement map here in guides from mesh in the displacement map slot here. So that. Next, let me close this to have only what is relevant. Next, we have the point count. The point count is like the vertex count of the guides. How many, like it will be like the resolution of the guides. By default is 10, but I don't think for what we want maybe too high, but we can increase or decrease this later. So we are going to leave it at 10. Next we have the length, so just the length of the guides. So here is where you decide how long, how large you want your hair strands. By default is 50. Let me reduce this, maybe 5. Let's try with 5. Let me go to 6. But again, this is procedural and we can change it later. Let's leave it at 6. And randomness, this will randomize the length. As you can see, you will have short and long guides, but I'm going to set this to 0 and we are going to use another tool to randomize the length of the mesh of the hair. So I will set this at 0 and yeah, let's go with that. Next we have edit guides, but I'm going to try to not use this. Edit guides is where you comb your hair manually like this, but as I said, I'm going to make this as procedural as I can, so we don't spend too much time grooming manually. It can be a bit time consuming. Next we have hair from guides. So this will, as its name says, it will generate and interpolate hair between the guides, so based on the guides data. And we also have the distribution type settings as in guides from mesh. They are the same, they work the same way. We have hair count. This will be the hair count. We have render count. This will be the amount of hair that we get in the rendering, and viewport count fraction is the percentage of hairs that we get in the viewport. This is based on the render count. So for example, if I set 1 here, we have 100% hair on the viewport, 100% of the hairs that we have in the render count here. If I put 0.1, we have now 10%. So that's how it works. And we also have a displacement map, like in guide from mesh, in case you want to displace the roots with the distribution map, etc. We have parting settings. We are not going to use that here. We have isolation, etc. We are not going to use any of that here. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Okay, next we have change width. This is to change the thickness of the hair. So if I turn this on, we have here a width parameter to decrease or increase the width, the thickness of the hair strands, and I'm going to set it to something like this. Another thing that I'm going to use is change this material to a Lambert, just for visualization, and we are going to have this white and black beard like this. Another thing, another preparation that I'm going to do, wait, let me get this from here like this to save space. Another thing, another preparation that I'm going to do is turn on anti-aliasing, so we don't get this noise in the hairs, those yeah, this noise. And I'm going to, okay, I think that's it. Just for now, just the anti-aliasing. I'm going to turn on the ambient occlusion, but not right now. It's not very useful right now. Okay, so I'm going back to guides from mesh because I want to use a texture map to define the areas where I want the guides to grow. So in the beard area like this. Why? Because the rest of the guides will not be used. They will be useless. So they will be consuming resources. So there is no point to have them there. We are not going to use them. They are not going to appear in the rendering. They are not going to generate hair because we are going to mask them out. So we will remove it. To do that, I'm going to, as I said, use a distribution map here in this slot, right? So let's go to mood box to paint the map. So I have one map here, but I'm going to just group this. Wait, I have to create a group first. Let me call this all, oh no, test maps. And I'm going to put everything there. How do I select more than one layer? It's not possible, I think. Okay, I'm going to move them one by one. So I can just hide the whole group and start again. I think I need to copy one of these. Duplicate, where is it? Where is it? I'm blind. Duplicate selected here. And put this outside. So we have this black. Black is no hair, and white is hair. Is yes hair. So black, as you know, represent 0, and 0 will reduce the guide count to nothing in the areas where we set it to black. So I'm going to call this I don't know, background or black, I don't know, and add a new layer and start painting there. And it's good that this model is symmetrical, so we only have to paint one side. And I'm going to take my brush and paint white the areas where I want guides and where I want hair. So first I'm going to reset this brush. It's too big now. And let's start painting them up. So at first when you paint, we get this nice blur at the edges. We don't want that. When we are defining the areas where we want the hair to the guides to grow, is better to have a sharp edge, because this as it is right now, it will not create a nice blend between the areas in black and the areas in white. It will maybe create one guide here and one guide here. The result will not be that good, because it will not really create a gradient with the guides from white to black. So what we need is make the brush sharper. I think I have to go to the fall off, and if I remember correctly, I have to increase the curve here and here like this. Yeah, something like that. Let me try the opposite. Oops. Because I want it to be sharp, but I don't want those jaggy edges like this. I want it to have a little bit of smoothness. And I don't remember the right settings, so if you excuse me, I'm going to try to find that out now. Maybe it's like this. Higher like this. Okay, I'm going to just go for the, yeah, just going to go for this. Oops, let me decrease the brush size. Yeah, let's go with that. Let me get my tablet and my reference. So I want something like this. This distribution area. So, oh, let me set it to always on top. Another thing that I want to do is go to advanced and set the minimum strength to 100, so we always get 100% white. So I'm going to be very generous with this mask, and I am not going to paint exactly where I want the hair like this. I'm going to paint very rough and wide like this. Just get a big area, and we are going to refine that later. I'm going to oh wait, I have to turn on symmetry or mirror, where is it? Here, mirror X, right, like this. So I'm going to be, as I was saying, let's be very generous with this mask like this, and we can refine that later. Even though the mask goes up to the, wait, goes up to this, what is happening? Let me, okay. The mask goes up to this point like this, but over here like this we have very small hairs like this, right? So the mask should actually look like this. Let me get this reference. The mask should look more like this. It should cover from the ears to the nose like this one here. So let's try to paint something like that. Again, I'm going to set this to always on top, and let's start painting, and we can just go wild here. Something quick. You don't have to be so precise. And we have also very small hairs on the neck like this, so let's be very generous here. And we also have hairs like this one, hairs that go back to this area behind the ear like this. And let's get the other reference. Let me define the edge like this. It should look like this. And try to not leave any, try to not miss any black pixels here in the middle like this. Don't let any pixel like this one, or the hair will have patchy areas. So make sure the white is pure white without any black pixels. Make sure you don't miss anything. Double check. Okay. I'm going to use the steady stroke to refine this edge. Like something like this. And here as well. Here at the top it doesn't matter. In fact, I think it's too much. Let's delete some of that. No. Give me my color palette back here. So maybe up to here and remove the rest. Okay, let's keep painting white here under the nose, like this, and maybe a little bit more. This edge here should go higher, like this. Okay, now let's refine here at the ear. Looking at my reference, and I don't want it to be too precise. I don't want it to look weird either. So let's go with that. Wait a second. Just let me get rid of this. Oops. Here, so I can continue with my life here. There you go. And here. You know what? Let's put this in white as well, because I'm seeing very small hairs in this area. So let's go with white, and we can change this later with the length node. I'm going to show you how. Let me see this in, let me save first, and let me see it on UV space. Where are they? Yeah, just to make sure we are not missing. Oops. So I can't zoom in more than this, right? Okay, just another pass to make sure we are not missing any pixels. Flatten from UV space. Where is the model? How do I center the model back? Oh, here it is. Okay. That's a problem I wasn't expecting. How do I center the screen? Let me look for that real quick. There you are. Okay. The model is back, ladies and gentlemen. There. Let me save. So I'm going to export. I'm going to export this to use it as distribution map. I'm going to call this dist map and save. Let's go back to Maya. Okay, so here is something that you have to have in mind. So guides depends on the topology of the mesh and the UVs. This means that if the topology changes, the guides will change, hair from guides will change width will change, and any operator in the stack will recompute itself to update for the changes that you made to the mesh, right? So that's how it's procedural. So you have to have in mind that you can move vertices around. Yes, you can deform the mesh, but if you delete if you delete a face, if you delete a point in the mesh, guides from mesh will be recomputed, and the guides will change, and you will ruin your grooming, your groom. So this also applies to the distribution map only when you use it in guides from mesh, because hair from guides also have a distribution map, but it will not be so destructive as in guides from mesh. So what I recommend is, when you use a distribution map in guides from mesh, that is not always necessary. Always go to root persistence and and activate remember roots positions. So in this case, when this is on, when this option is on, the root's position on the mesh will be cached. So if the mesh, if the topology of the mesh is modified, the roots, the guides will not be recomputed, and if the distribution map changes also, the guides will not be recomputed. This will maintain your room safe from destructing itself by maybe an accident that you made. Maybe you forgot and modified the topology of the mesh or the distribution map. Maybe you made a change to the distribution map and you save it by accident. This option, when it's on, this will make sure that when you make that accident, the groom will not be affected by it. Okay, so that being said, another thing that you can do to be safe is just leave it like that. It's just don't use distribution. You don't have to use a distribution map in guides from mesh. We are going to generate the hair here in this area, and the rest of the guides will be ignored. What you can do is use guides from mesh here. I mean, edit guides to delete the guides that you will not use, or as I said, use a distribution map. So I'm going to show you both methods right now. First, using a distribution map. In guides from mesh, you go to the distribution map load and just load the distribution map that we created. This map, and it will get rid of all the guides that are outside of our distribution area or the white area. So again, I am explaining this as basic as possible for people new to Ornatrix or grooming in general. Okay, let's continue. This is one way, so I'm going to show you the other way, the other method. Let me remove the map so we get the guides back. You can add edit guides. Go into root mode, select the guides that you don't need, like this, and go to guide operations and click delete selected strands. There, they are gone. But to make this as simple as possible, what I'm going to do is just leave them there. Just let them be. They are not going to, the extra guides are not going to affect the groom in any way. And we may even use them later to create other things, to add extra details. So let's just continue with those guides here. But we have a problem here. If we turn on guides from hair from guides, if we turn it back, we still have hairs all over the face, right? And we don't want that. So we can connect this distribution map here in guides, here in hair from guides, and here is safe. Here you need it most of the time. You have to use it most of the time, and is completely safe. You don't have to worry about breaking your room by accident. So I'm just going to find the map here in the hypershade, and okay, I think is, yeah, this one. And I recommend always naming your nodes. I'm going to call this map as well, so we can find it later. And select the groom, go into her from guides, and click control middle click and drag to the distribution multiplier slot. There. So now all the hair is only in this area. There you go. So okay, now we have the beard, the hair, where we want it, right? But the length is wrong, because if you see here in the reference, we have shorter hair here, a longer hair here, and also shorter here, and even shorter here, until it blends with the skin. So we have different levels of length. So to work with that, we have another node called here, this node called change length node, or length node, that we are going to use above hair from guides. So when we use this node, we can decrease or increase the length of the hair. Essentially, it also affects the guides. Okay, so we are going to add a map here to create a nice length, as a nice length transitions, as I did in other live streams. So if you if you already saw this, you know what I'm talking about, and the rest of you will see in a second. But before using this node, I'm going to delete it to keep this as simple as possible, we have to comb, we have to shape this beard to look like beard, because right now is doesn't look very realistic, right? It doesn't have the right shape. We have to comb the hair. To comb the hair, we have two options. We can, as I said before, we can use edit guides and comb the guides, and the hair will follow the guides. But you know, this may take some time, a lot of tweaking, and this may be necessary in certain scenarios. But and this is not this type of combing is not procedural. So I'm going to show you another different way to do this. I'm going to delete edit guides, and on top of hair from guides, I'm going to add the surface comp node. This node will help you comb the hair using what we call sinks, like to define a general shape to the hair instead of combing guide by guide or hair by hair. You can define the direction of large areas of hair, of large volumes of big volumes of hair. So I should just show you. By default, the hair will go, all the hair will go in a single direction like this. Again, doesn't look very realistic, and it's not what we are looking for. Before I continue, another preparation that I do is go to the hair shape node here on top. The top node is the hair shape. Go into this node and go into the viewport hair display tab here in the attribute, and then turn on camera facing normals. So I'm going to copy this tab to show you the difference. Turn this option on. So now the hairs, the normals of each hair strand will follow the camera, will face the camera. So make sure this option is on, so you don't get this weird looking beard, and you get a better shading. This option is only useful in the viewport. You don't need this for the rendering. And make sure that camera facing hairs is also on, because this will make sure that the hair blades will face the camera. As you can see, they rotate with the camera. Okay, let's continue. So I was saying, surface comp will comb the hair in a general direction using sinks. What are sinks? So okay, we have here the sinks editing tool. With this tool is what we are going what we are going to use to create the sinks. It works in two modes: in the add mode to add sinks, and in the edit modes to remove and modify the sink, so you can tweak the direction of the hair. So with this tool on, you click and drag on the surface like this to define the general shape, like this. And you can click at the roots of the sink and move them, or move the tip like this. You can also use symmetry with this, with the sinks, and change the uh, change the way that the sinks will affect the hair by changing the sink orientation type. You can change this per sink, or for all the sinks at the same time. Okay, so you can move them along the surface. You can use and also the controls for the symmetry are the type here are also here on top of the sinks. You can turn this on and off, and as you can see, we have the other sink on this side. This will turn on and off the mirroring, and this will change the orientation type. So what I'm going to do now is drop this tool, and instead of I'm going to start from scratch with surface comp, add the node again, and I'm going to use the sinks tool again, and make sure we have symmetry on here, and start combing the hair. So I'm going to use this reference to see how it looks from the side. It looks like this, and in the center it goes to the front like this. So I'm going to draw some things to the back like this, starting from the top. Not too many for now, and two here in the center, right? Okay, so okay, now I'm going to drop this tool with Q, and let me save the scene. So we have here several settings to determine how the sinks will affect the hair. Starting with the slope curve. The slope curve will help you determine how the sinks affect the hair from the root here. As you can see, if I move the root of the curve here, it will affect the root of the hair depending on how high or how low are the values here, like this. So I'm going to increase this a bit like this, and here we have the tip of the hair, so we can decrease and increase how much effect the sinks will have on the hair. So the sinks are bending the hair, and we have two bend parameters here, minimum and maximum bend values. These two will determine how much bending the sinks will apply to the hair. So if I increase the maximum bend value, like this, the the um, the hair will have will get closer to the shape of the sink, like this. And the minimum as well will have the same effect. Okay, let me decrease the width so we have something like this. I know it doesn't look very good right now, but bear with me, we will get there. So here I'm going to use something like this maybe, and just let it be for now. So chaos will add will randomize these two parameters like this. It will randomize the directions. So I'm going to set this to 0 because I want it to flow nice without any randomization. We can add that later with the freeze node. I'm going to show you how. And let me keep tweaking the slope curve like this. Maybe more like this to add some curve here, and increase this one as well. Okay, let's go with that for now, and let's see what I can do to the sinks, because here at the center the hairs are going like this. They are crossing each other like this, and I don't want that. So I'm going to modify to edit the sinks to avoid that. That's better. And they are also crossing each other here, but this is for the lack of a sink in this area. What I can try is getting the tip of the sink and moving it away from each other like this. But the best thing to do here is just add another sink like this to better define the length. So as you can see, the longer the sink, the more hairs, the bigger the area that it will affect, and the more effect it will have on the hair. So let's add a few more to better define this area here. Okay, that's good for now. For now, let's go with that. I'm going to increase the viewport count to 100% to see more hair. Okay. I think I can add another thing here. This way. Cool, okay. Okay, now it's time to go back and add our length node again, so we can define this length. We can define the length of the beard in different areas using a length map. So I'm going back to Moodbox, save this just in case, and I'm going to call this layer this map. We are going to keep this because now we are going to paint the length map based on the distribution map. So I just add another layer on top, basically, right? Let's get my color palette over here, and let's go with black. Now we are going to remove. Let's go back to Maya for a second. Here we have a length amount value. The lower the value, the shorter the hair will be until it almost disappear. They are so small that they are not visible anymore. So let's set it to 1 and see the value multiplier. The value multiplier map will use a map and multiplied by this value. So we can use a texture map to control to add different levels of length across the surface. Let me show you. First, we want to remove hair. We want to paint black in the length map. Let me rename this length map. We want to paint black to remove some hairs that we don't need. Starting, let's see, starting in the lips. Let's get a smaller. You know what? Let's remove the lips in the distribution map instead. Let's finish that first. So we don't get hairs on the lips. Let's just do that real quick. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to export this again and override this map. Go back to Maya, hair from guides, distribution multiplier, reload. Okay, now we don't have hairs on the lips. We have hair over the lips, but not on the lips. Okay, now go back to the length map and we are going to start painting again. So first, I'm going to paint on black to create a gradient on the length here on this edge. So it should look like this, right? So we have to remove hair from this area here. But I need my brush to have a nice, let me decrease the, I need my brush to be smooth like this. As opposite when we were painting the distribution maps, because now we can do this nice gradient between two lengths and between two levels of length. So let's go with that. First, I'm going to dilute this a bit like this to show you the effect real quick before, so we don't have you don't have to wait to see me paint the whole map before you see some result, or before you see an example of how it works. So I'm going to paint this gradient real quick here so you can see better. So I'm going to export this right away. Let me call this, obviously, length map. Go back to Maya. So in the length map, I'm going to connect this to the value multiplier file with a file node and load the map. Let me put this here so you can see better. So if I load, I forgot to turn on the symmetry, but it's okay. Let me also hide this hair mesh. Now you can see how the hair goes from 0 length here to full length here, and you can see this transition here. That's what we want on this area and on all the edges. We don't want these sharp edges like this. At least that's not what I'm seeing here in my reference. I see a smooth transition that starts here and ends over here, more or less. So let's try to replicate that. And don't forget to turn on your symmetry, guys. Okay, let's go with that. So in the reference, I see that the beard starts more or less here. So I'm going to paint pure black up to here like this. And now I'm going to define this edge here. First pure black, and then let's try to blend nicely. Let me also go to advanced settings and set the minimum size to 100 so we don't because I don't want that. I don't want to get those small strokes like this. Not in this case. I want to get this effect, this nice smooth big brush like this. And let's apply the same smoothness over here. Okay, and here as well, the bottom. Let's first remove this hard edge and blend it with the white like this. Okay, smaller brush and do the same here. Just remove those jaggy edges. Try try to make it blend smoothly. Zoom in just to make sure you are not leaving those ugly edges here. Looking at your reference. You may want to look for a reference with the higher resolution so you can see better details or see more details. Okay, and smooth these edges as well. Right now we are just trying to blend the pure black with the pure white. We are not defining different hair lengths yet. Just blending those edges, making them disappear. This is the first step. Just go nicely over the edges like this and smooth them out. It should be easy and quick. We are almost there. And we are there. Okay. So let me save this and export to test. Go into the length node, the file node, and reload. Okay, good. I think it's a good time to tweak the width again to something that is not very, doesn't look that ugly. And I'm also going to tweak the width of the roots here with the ramp like this. This works the same as with the sync node. Here is the point, the points to the left control the roots and the points to the right control the tips. So I'm going to try to, I want to create, to make the roots look like a little bit round. Like this. Okay. Good. Okay. Now I'm going to remove the hair on the mustache. For that, I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to call this length L2, and I'm going to rename this to length L1. The L is for level, and I'm going to make the hair of the mustache here very short, because we are going to use a different, a separate hair object to comb the mustache. So I'm going to paint this whole area black, 100% black, like this, and reduce the opacity. Oh no, wait, I painted on the wrong layer. It's here. Okay, 100% black. And reduce the opacity. We don't want to remove the hair completely. We just want to make it very short. So maybe set the opacity to 90%. And let's try with that. Let's see how that looks. Reload. Okay, maybe shorter. Let's try 98%. Like that. The hairs are still there, just very short. And by the way, I'm going to hide the low poly mesh that I used to generate the hair. We don't need to see it right now. There you go. So that's how it looks right now. Very short, and then we are going to add another hair object on top of that. Okay, so now I'm going to add different levels of length. I'm going to do that in another layer, starting with this bottom part. So let's paint this 100% black like this. Like this. And reduce the opacity, maybe 60% for now. And now I'm going to use the blur tool to blend this edge here, mixing this level with the white. I'm going to make it as smooth as possible. Maybe increase the opacity 80%. Keep smoothing this. Something like this. Export. This is not hard. We just have to do a lot of exporting. Like this. Okay, now I want to blend this edge here. Looks too sharp. For that, I'm going to paint black. You know what? I'm going to rename this to mustache. I think this is how it's spelled. And I'm going to blend it here in the first layer with the blur tool like this. Let me hide this layer first. I'm going to paint more black to make this edge disappear. and use blur again, maybe more black to get it away from the edge. And smooth like this. We get our layer level 2, length level 2 back, and let's keep blurring it like this. Maybe increase the opacity like this. Maybe 100% is better in this case, yes. Let's go with that and give it a quick try. Yes, that's better. Now let me add another layer, and I'm going to paint all this area here. Yes, and decrease the opacity and blend like this. And continue like this. Now I'm going to do something that you may not approve, but I'm going to just use the map that I have here to save time, because I see that I've been here from 1 hour and a half, and I want this one to be quick. I don't want you to spend too much time here. I don't want the video to be too long, the resulting video to be too long. So I'm going to reuse this map to show you how it should look in this case. Reload, something like that. We may need to do some tweaking here and maybe just change the general length like this. Okay. Let me set it back to 0 and show you the different ways to send length using this node. So we have this option here by use scaling. So by default, you see that decreasing the length will just like will basically cut the hair starting from the tip, right? But if this option is on, use scaling, it will scale the hair instead, so we get a different effect. You see, it is scaling it like this. But if the option is off, it will cut the hair like this. it will like shrink the hair. So in this case, I want to use this option because I wanted to rescale the hair instead. Maybe to half like this. That looks more close to this. Or maybe 0.6. Yeah, point 0.6. Okay, now this is getting closer to what we want. We have very short hairs here and longer hairs over here, and then shorter again here. Okay, now something important. We are going to be applying some effects like freeze, curling, etc. And the nodes that I'm going to use for that will apply the effect, the strength of the effect will be the same on every hair strand regardless of its length. But in reality, shorter hair have less curling and freeze, and also hairs that are closer to this area are thinner than hairs that are on this area here. So they are not just shorter, they are thinner, they have less curl, less freeze. So we have to take this length and pass it to other nodes so they know that now the hair is shorter and they should apply its effect taking the length of the hair into account. For that, I'm going to use the generate strand data node. With this node, we can generate strand channels based on certain attributes of the hair. So, for example, in this case, we need a channel with the length data. A strand channel is something similar to a texture map, but in a per strand or per strand vertex basis. So generate strand data will generate strand channels or texture map, for example, based on certain hair attributes. Okay, see, here in the attribute editor, we have a field to enter to define the name of our channel. I'm going to call this length ch or length channel. The channel type will be per strand. I'm going to explain per vertex later, maybe in another video, because we are not going to use that now. It's not relevant for this group, it's not useful. So the next important parameter is the generation method. Right now it's in constant. It will apply a single value to all the strands. They will all be white. They always be set to the value 1 because they go from 0 to 1 or black to white. They will be all set to white. But we need them to have values, to have gradient values based on its length to accomplish the effect that I just described. So for that, we are going to change the generation method from constant to strand length. Now, the generate strand data node contains a strand channel called length and the data that it contains is the length strand, the strand of each individual, well, the length of each individual strand, right? So just set the generation method to a strand length, that's it, and set a name, that's it, that's all. Now, right now, all the strands have the same width, right? They all have the same thickness, regardless of its length. So as I said, some hairs have a different width depending on the skin area. So for example, hairs over here will be thinner compared to hairs over here. So we already have this data here in generate strand data node. So I'm going to pass this data to the change width node. For that, we go to the width channel in change width, the width channel. And in this drop down list, we select the length channel that we created in the previous node. Now, if I select the channel, I expect shorter hair to be thinner than longer hairs. And that's exactly what I get. The longer the hair are, the thicker they are. You see? The hairs here are thicker, and the hairs here are thinner. And this is the effect that we see here. Let me get another reference with better resolution. What are my references? For example, here, this one here, you see that the hair in this area, sorry, you see that the hair in this area are thinner, not only shorter, but thinner. So that's what we need. When they are shorter, they also have less curling and less frizz. As you can see, the short hairs go more like have a slight curve like this, but the hairs that are longer they go more like this here. So let's try to create that effect. Starting with the thickness. So the thickness is already set as we want it to be. Here in the neck, on the neck, the hairs are very thin. If we zoom out, they look even better. The hairs here near to the ear are also thinner, but we still have this edge here. So let's tweak the map just a little bit more. Maybe I can just use this layer here. Okay, let's go with that. Let me see the next. Yeah, those two. Let's try with that. Yeah, looks good. Maybe set the opacity a little bit lower, 50%, and turn this back on. And lower the opacity as well, maybe 25%, and re-export. As you can see, we are spending more time painting the map than in Ornatrix, but the most important thing here is to get a good map, because this will define the look of the beard. Without this nice transition here, it doesn't matter how much time we spend grooming or how much details we add. If the beard doesn't blend nicely with the skin, it will look fake. So we have this nice blending, this nice transition from the beard to the skin, and this is what we are looking for. So okay, this map have the mustache, so I'm going to activate this layer to help me remove it. Maybe I can remove it from here like this. Yes. And yeah, let me just paint it here. And as you can, oh yes, I'm just going to just blur out this edge. As you can see, we are adding many layers, and things may get confusing with so many layers. That always happens to me. Yeah, let's try to be as fast as possible with this. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. There we go. We removed the mustache. Then what we are going to do later is, as I said, create another hair object to define the groom, a nice groom like this, something like that. You will see later. So okay, good. The beard is better, looks better than without the length node like this. This is without the length node, the length node and the length map, and this is with the map. So you can see there is a big difference. And the good thing is that we can still change any parameter without destroying the groom. We can change the length. We can change the length here. We can change the sinks. We can change any value here in the surface comp node. Anything. And let me, by the way, let me tweak this, by the way. Let's see if we can improve this a little bit. Maybe like this, and maximum value like this. Yeah, so we can just go back to any parameter and change anything. Literally anything. We can also change the sinks. We go into edit mode and change and pick the sinks editing tool, and we can just add more sinks. For example, I want to oops, what I did, why did I did okay, to add more sinks, we have to go into add mode, not edit mode, sorry. and then just click and drag, and we define better the shape like this, and you can just go back to any parameter, any node, and change any values here. So let me, here I'm getting a weird shape here. The hair is going like this, but I want it to go like this. So let's start by moving the things like this. Okay, maybe make this one shorter and add another one instead like this. No, that's not gonna work. No. What about moving this one? It's looking better. Yeah, it's looking better, but not quite there yet. Okay, let me add one here. What you can also do is change the settings in a per scenes basis. For example, you go into edit mode, right? And you select one sync, let's say this one, and you, with the sync selected, you go here to the override settings and you change the settings. Here you have to first click override, and then you can change the slope ramp for a single sync. So you can go and refine one by one like this. I want this to have a stronger effect at the roots to make it blend better like this, and less at the tips. Let me even remove this point, and maybe like this. You can see how the hair, well, I hope you can see it, how the hair changes here. And let's see if the middle have to be, yeah, maybe something like this. Okay, let me select and this also of course will affect the other side of the head, because is each sync have symmetry. I'm going to tweak this one as well. I want here the hair is too curvy. If that's a word, I'm not sure. So I'm going to override this one as well. Just select the sync, click override, and let me make it more plain, more like this. Yeah, more or less like this. And here in this area, override. Here I want it to go like this, and the tip, remove this like this. And I think I may need to remove a few things to improve the flow here. So just select one sync and press delete in your keyboard, and that's it. I'm going to remove this one as well. Yeah, this could help. And this, yeah, just this whole area here, and redefine them. Good. Okay, so I'm going to add a few things again. No, that's too big. Not there either. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add one here to move the hair like this. And I'm going to select it, override, and change it a little bit like this. Like this. More like this. Nice. Much better. Okay, now let's continue with this area here. Add the sync, select it, override, and let me remove some points and test. Okay, that one is not working. Let me first add one, a small one here, a short one here, and here. Okay, we get this crossing again here, so let's see. Okay, let me. I think the trick here is, well, it's not bad like this. Yeah, I just have to maybe add one here to fix this. This here. Yes, good. That's it. Let me, yeah. Good. Now, let's see if we can fix it here as well. Yes, let me override this one. Nope, this one. Oops. Increase the amount at the roots like this. Decrease it at the tips. Much better. That's much better. And as you can see, we have some hair intersections here, the hair going into the skin, into the head. We are going to fix that in a moment. Let's continue working on the flow of the beard. I think it's fine. I think for now we can continue with that. Uh, Let me look again at my reference. Yeah, I may want to add one here like this to create this pinching here, this pinch effect here like this. This is what I'm seeing in the reference. This pinching here like this. Okay, let's see if I should add another one. No, that's not good. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe not needed either. Okay, let's see this one. Select it, override, and see how we can improve it. More or less like that. You know what? No, let's get rid of this one. And let's continue with that. Let's continue with what we have right now. So to fix this intersection, I'm going to do it as I did in other live streams. So at the top or after the comp, no, I'm going to do it at the top here. I'm going to add a push away from surface node. As its name says, it will push the hair away from the distribution surface. From the distribution surface. It's a good thing that we have enough. Let me show you something. Let me unhide the distribution surface. The distribution surface, as I said, is the mesh, the polygon mesh that we use to generate the hair, right? So here, in this case, in this particular case, we have enough surface to get a nice collision here. So the way this operator works is it will take the distribution surface. By default, it will use the distribution surface and use collisions to push away the surface from the mesh like this. Now, in some cases, I have seen some users with this problem, so I want to explain this now. In some cases, the hair will start at the distribution surface, but will be too long, or will be so long that it moves past the edge of the distribution surface. So push away from surface will make this point collide with the mesh. This point here collide with the mesh, but this point will not have any mesh to collide with, because it cannot project the hair point on the mesh, so it will not find anything to collide the mesh with, so it will go around and collide with the mesh on the other side like this. So the hair will be bent and will look like this. It will collide with the mesh on the other side, on the same mesh, but on the other side. So to fix that, you can do what I did here. Just use a mesh with enough surface to collide the hair, or to push away the hair from. Or in push away from surface, you can use a separate collision mesh here. By default, as I said, it will have this option on, collide with distribution mesh. Let me turn this off so you can see. If I turn this off, it will go back. The hair will go through the mesh again, because it doesn't have any mesh to calculate the collision, or to calculate the distance between the mesh and the hair. So right now it doesn't have any mesh. By default, it have the distribution mesh. Right now it doesn't have any mesh, so this operator is not doing anything at all. So the other option to fix what I explained here with the edge of the mesh is to instead go to collision meshes box here and click add collision mesh, and add your main mesh instead. Click this tool here and click the main mesh. And it will take a few seconds, because the main mesh have way more polygons no, in fact, it is not doing anything right now, because the main mesh right now is not selectable. So I have to go into my layer settings here and make it selectable. Okay, now, so again, add collision mesh and click on your main mesh, and now you see the collision working fine here, and the edge mesh that I mentioned here now will not be a problem, because you will have I hope a mesh that is not open like this, or even if the mesh is open, it will have a bigger surface to calculate the collision. Now, the bigger the mesh, probably more polygons you have, and the more polygons you have, the slower will be pushed away from surface, because it have more topology to work out the calculations. So this is an operator that will recompute itself when the mesh is deformed. So imagine this face is deforming, is moving. Imagine the character is animated. This operator will recompute on each frame. So you have to take that into account. So what I recommend is using a very, very low poly version of your main mesh for the collision here. Sometimes not even the distribution mesh, but something even lower, something with even a mesh. Use a separate mesh optimized for collision. I know that that is a pretty common practice with working with visual effects, collisions, simulation. So that's what I recommend. Have an optimized mesh for your collisions with work when working with this node. Um, you may notice that sometimes I call these operators or nodes. It is the same. It's exactly the same. I just use this term sometimes because internally in the company we call them operators, but they are nodes. So when I call them operators, just you know that I'm referring to the nodes. Okay, let's continue. We are looking at, let me remove this from here now and use the optimized version of the mesh, which is the collision mesh itself. And let me show you the before and after. This is before push away from surface, and this is with push away from surface. Before, after, before, after. You can see how it will bend the hair strand nicely like this to avoid the intersection. So and sometimes it will if you wait, let me hide this mesh. If you see that sometimes it will push away the hair too much, for example, here it is creating an angle here at the roots and then push, create an angle and then push away, angle, and then you see this is on every root right now. And I'm going to show you that this is being done, this is caused by the push away from surface node, you see. So we also have a curve that we can tweak this collision using this amount ramp curve. And again, to the left of the curve, this is closer to the root, and to the right is closer to the tip. So we can just go and decrease the collision amount near to the root, so we can smooth out this transition like this. It will look way better this way. And we can also increase or decrease the distance, the push away distance. If I increase it, it will just straighten out the hair because they are said to be very far away from the face. So there is the default value is 0.1. But in this game, in this case, I'm just going to use the curve to tweak this and maybe increase this just a little bit. There you go. I'm not going to explain the rest of the parameters. They are not relevant for this room. Oh, well, yeah. You make sure you have this option on, preserve segment lengths. This will make sure that the distance parameter will not affect the length, will not change the length of the hair. If I turn this off, you will see how changing the distance will also affect the length of the points, and we don't want that. We want to preserve the length. So make sure this is on, and let's set this back to a lower value like this. Let me, yeah. You see here we still have some intersections, so maybe increase it a little bit, just a little bit, like this. Okay, I am going to also go back to her from guides. As I said, this is still procedural. Beside the map, the only destructive thing that we have here is the map, is the length map. But the rest is still completely procedural, so we can still just go back to another node and change values. So I'm going to go back to her from guides, and I'm going to show you something that I was explaining with the displacement map. I'm using a low poly version of the main mesh of the face. So the roots of some hairs are going into the mesh like this, right? They are going into the mesh like this. So we can lift the roots using the displacement offset parameter here. Let me show you the effect here. If we increase this, the roots will be pushed away from the surface. But the point of this is to use a displacement map, the same displacement map that you are using for the details of your model. You have to connect it here in displacement multiplier. But I don't have a displacement map, so I'm just going to just increase the offset a little bit just to lift my roots a little bit. I think that's enough, or maybe a little bit more. No, that's too much as well. Maybe 10. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you can still change distribution types. You can still change anything in her from guides here. And I went back to her from guides to modify the hair count. So I'm going to duplicate this just to have a little bit more hairs to work with. Good. The shape doesn't look completely horrible. Let's save this. Let's see. I'm looking around. I'm going to turn this option off. Preserve segment length. It will still be affecting the length of the hair, but of the hair, but it's not very noticeable, and it will improve a bit the intersection in this area. It will get rid of this parting here that I don't like. So in this case, in this particular case, I will turn this option off. So you decide what you want in your case. You can taste, turn it off and on, and see what kind of effect you want. So in this case, in this particular case, it is not affecting the length. It's bad that I don't have deformations on this face, that I don't have animation on the face, because I would like to test how this option behaves in this case if the head if the face had deformations, but is static, so we will have to work with that. I will increase the hair count even more. maybe 50,000, like this, just to cover more of the face. So we have this, right? Have this. I don't like very much this shape here, but let's add some details to see how it looks, and we'll see then if I have to go back and fix this. Okay, I will use this angle, and now is the time to turn on the ambient occlusion so we can see those shadows between the hair strands, and increase the hair count a bit more, like this. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this bird is add some randomization to the length. There is a length randomization parameter here in guides from mesh, but remember that I set this one to 0, so we can apply randomization later here in the length node. So here in the length node, we have a minimum value, a maximum value, and a parameter to randomize between those two. So I'm going to increase this slowly and zoom in, maybe 15 to randomize the hair length, like this. Not too much, because this is supposed to be a well groomed bird. Beard. I know my pronunciation is not the best. Just bear with me, guys. So okay, we are going to be adding details by layers. So I'm going to start here on top. I like to have change width always on top for no particular reason. It will not change anything. It's just the way I do it. Don't ask me why. It doesn't matter where this is. It will always, as long as it is on top of hair from guides, it will always change the width of the hair. So every, yeah, sure. So I'm going to add details by layers. I'm going to start adding a bit of clumping. Let's see if that works. Let's just test. This is the good thing with this tool, with this hair tool. Let me block this. This is the good thing that you can just test. The changes that you made are not destructive. If you have an idea, you are free to test without compromise. So let's try clumping. Let's see how it looks on this beard. The clumping node is this one here. So just click, and by default it will have some settings here, some clumps, and I'm just going to click here, delete clumps, to create my own clumps. Let me collapse all these so I can go one by one. So we have a lot of settings in this node. Starting with clumping settings, this here is where we have the, whoops, What is happening? Okay, here is where we have the clumping amount and the clumping curve. Twist, clump, randomization, etc. On subclumping, in subclumping, as its name said, we can create subclumps. This means create a smaller clumps of other bigger clumps. It's like subdividing the clumps. Clump management is where we decide what type of clumping we want. If we want clump by, if we want random clumps, if we want clump by guides, or other options that we have here. I'm going to use random clumps, but I'm going to show you real quick how clump by guides work. If you choose this option and click create, it will create a clump for each guide, one clump for each guide. The reason why the clumps look like this right now is because this is how the guides look. If I go back to edit guides and add edit guides, well, I mean, if I go back to guides from mesh and add edit guides to edit the guides, you can see that the guides look this way. That's why the clump looks this way. And why the guides look this way if we used surface comp? Well, because the surface comp is being applied on top of the hair, so it is combing the hair instead, not the guides. And this is the reason why we are not going to use guide clumping on this group. So let's go back to clump, and I'm going to use random clump instead, and it will create random clumps. So this is the same with the width. Long hair will not be clumped the same as this short hair, so we have this clumping here that doesn't look good, right? So we already have data describing the length of the hair created here, remember, right? The length channel. So we are going to reuse this map here in the length, in the clump amount channel, in the clump node. So you go to this channel, to this drop down list, and select your length channel. Here it is. Now you have you can see that the longer the hair, the more clump strength they have, and this is what we have. But still, those clumps are too big for this beard. So we are going to delete those clumps with random clump selected as create method. We go to clump count and increase this number, maybe 500, and then we click create clumps. So the less clumps you have, the bigger they will be. So we have very small clumps like this. A short beard like this doesn't have any clumping. It just have a lot of curls and frizz. But I just want to try how this look, how it will look with clumps, and you can see also the result of this experiment. Okay, so let's keep increasing the clump count and clicking create to see how it is changing. Still we have they look too big. Let me duplicate this, click create again, and looking better. Let me increase it one more time to 3000, and yes, even better. Let's keep going. Let's just keep going. Yes, very smaller thin clumps. let's try with that. So I want to try to add this curling to the clumps, right? So let's add first a curl node on top of the clump node. This is this icon here. So I just added the stack, and we have some the effect right now is too extreme, right? Okay, so also you will notice that you get those sharp angles like this when creating the curves. This is because in guide from mesh we set the point count to 10, and maybe this amount of point is not enough. And as I say, the points are like the hair vertices. For example, we have this here, and we will have a point here, 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 until we reach 10 points. So we will see if we need to add more points. First, let's tweak this color node and see what we get. So we have here two wave form types, and this is like a 2D type, and this is like a 3D type that goes as a like a spiral. Its length dependent will take the length of the of the of the hair into account, but let me turn that off for now. I like how it behaves here, but here is too much. Okay, magnitude will change the wave, like the strength of the wave like this. So I'm going to decrease this, and I'm going to assign my length channel to the magnitude channel here and see how that looks. Let me play again with the magnitude channel like this. As you can see, we still get those angles because we don't have enough points, but let me try to fix that. I'm going below the curl node, and I'm going to add a detail node. No, not this one. Yeah, this one. A detail node. This will this will smooth out the hair by adding more points. Of course, the more points you have, the heavier will be your hair object, and the more the more time it will take to render, and it will also decrease the performance in the viewport, because of course it have more resolution, more details. So to change the amount of point, you increase or decrease this parameter here, view point count. The view point count will change the point count here in the viewport, and the render point count will change the point count in the rendering, in the final rendering. This is, for example, if you want to have better performance in the viewport but less details, and more details in the render at the cost of longer render times. So you have two parameters here. So let me increase it. We are not going to run any renders right now, so I want to see how it looks in the viewport. So I'm going to duplicate this to 20. And as you can see, it looks smoother. I'm going to show you the before and after right now. If you can see it, it looks like this. And if I turn this on, now it looks like a curve. Looks much better now. and we are getting a bit closer to this. But you have to take something into account. We added two 10 more points here to 20 to each hair strand. But some hair strands, shorter hair strands like this, don't need that many points because they don't have this crazy deformation like the longer hairs here, so they don't need that many points. So that's a waste of points of performance and memory, of computer memory. So we can go into the detail node and turn on sample by length. This will make sure that the shorter the hair is, the less points, the less extra points they get, so we don't waste point. So here we can decide a minimum point count and a maximum point count. So we have to choose a minimum point count where those short hairs look good, and a maximum point count where the longer hairs look good as well. So the maximum point count that I set here in the viewpoint count was 20. It will respect that, but the minimum is set to 2, and maybe that's not enough. So I'm going to set the minimum to 10, which was the default value. And now the longer hairs look better, but maybe 10 is too much for the longer hair. So let me well, I mean for the short hair. It is good for the long hair, but maybe too much for the short hair. So what I'm going to do is decrease this to maybe 5, and I'm going to tweak the distance so the longer hairs will get more definitions. And that's it. The shorter hair looks good and the longer hair looks good as well, without wasting too many resources on points that are not needed, on extra points that are not needed. So remember this, sample by length. We also have a smoothing here. It will smooth out the interpolation between 2 points. I like to turn this on to set this to 1, and the smoothing count is like the amount of points that will be used for the smoothing. Sometimes I set this to 8, and the to 8 or lower than 10 in general. So even though we will lose some details, the curve that the hair will make will be smoother, and I like that look, especially after we add curling and freeze. Okay, so let's keep tweaking the curl node here. Let's see, let's tweak the face, see what it does. Okay, this is like the frequency, the amount of waves that will have the hair that the hair will have. Maybe like this. A stretch. Maybe that's too much. Maybe something like this. And let's see how it looks with the length map connected to the face channel. And to the stretch channel as well. Okay, I like how it looks, but only on the front. Uh, I'm not gonna use it here because to isolate the front, I will have to paint another map to mask this area out, and I don't want to paint more maps because of the time, and because the more maps we paint, the more complicated this gets, and it is the more files to maintain and to pass around at the studio. So let's not paint any other maps, and let me turn this off for now and find another way to add those curls. I'm going to try now with the freeze node. The freeze node, as you can see, will add freeze to the hairs. Of course, I'm going to set the amount very low. Let's set it to 0 and set the outlier amount to 0 and the outlier fraction to 0. And let's say what we can do with a scale. First, we have to increase this a little bit. Yes, I like this better. This is better. So instead of using the curl node, I'm going to use the scale parameter in the freeze node to instead add some finer curls in a per strand basis. Like this. Not too much. I just want to break out the flow a little bit, and let me set amount to 0, back to 0, and increase slowly like this. I just want to break the flow a little bit. Okay, yes, I'm liking this. But I'm going to, okay, let me delete this curl for now, and let's go back to the clump and reduce the clump amount. Let me turn off freeze to see how the clump looks. Let me reduce the clump amount to see now how a low amount of clumping will look with the scale value of the freeze node. Okay, 2000 clump like this. Let's go back to freeze node. Yeah, I like this more. Less clumps with more curling. Maybe like this. And let me increase the amount to 4 just to show you another thing with the length and the freeze. So the shorter hairs don't need as much freeze strength as the longer hairs in most cases. So what I'm going to do here is use this length channel from here to control the freeze amount. So shorter hairs will have less freeze. So as you can see, if I increase this, the shorter hairs looks smoother, just like our reference. So let's tweak it again. We can also, yeah, we can also tweak the scale just a bit. You can see the difference. Okay. Another thing that I want to show you in the clump node is that there you have this flyout fraction and flyout amount parameters. The flyout will just make some hair, so will take some hairs away from the clumps. They will the clumps will look more random because not every hair will be clumped, will be attached to a big chunk of hair. So you can use this parameter for that to randomize your clumps. What else? What else? The twist as well. You can twist the clumps like this. Here, like spirals. You see? This is really useful when you want to create clumps, for example, in how is it called? I think it's afro. Yeah, in afro hair, like this. When you want to create clumps like those. Uh, like this, or like, oh no, wait, like this. The image is very small, like this. To create this effect, we may see that in another stream. To create this effect, you add clumping and combine it with curl and twist in the clump node. So I'm going to add a little bit of a little bit of twist to this, just to make it look more messed up. Just a little bit, and I'm going to connect the length channel to it and tweak again. Let's see how it looks like that. No, that's too much. Maybe like this. Let's play with the twist ramp curve. Maybe this. Okay, what else can we use here in the clump node? Okay, that's it. Oh, and preserve a strand length will clump the hair, but preserving the length of each individual strand. So let me show you, let me draw for you. So imagine this is a clump, right? This is a clump hair. All the hair, the clump hair works like this. It have a clump guide in the center like this, and the rest of the hair will follow this guide to the tip like this. All the hairs, all the hair, all the hairs, and all the hairs, regardless of its length, will be stretched to reach the tip like this. If they are shorter hair like this, it will be stretched to reach the tip like this. But sometimes we don't want that. In this case, we use preserve strand length, and it will, as you can see, some hairs get shorter when this option is on, because it will preserve the strand length. So now if this is the clump guide, now the hair is being clumped like this. Short hairs will not be stretched to reach the tip, they will be more like this. Some will do reach the tip because they are long enough, but in general it should look like this, not like this, and is more realistic. So that let's get the freeze back. Okay, so before adding these curls to the beard, I would like to add a bit more volume. To add more volume, what I do is add another freeze. Let me call this volume, and I'm going to call this curls, fine curls, right? I'm going to call this well, clump, it's fine. So volume, what I do is add another freeze node, set all this to 0, even scale, and just use the amount to add a little bit of volume like this, maybe 1.1. Let me show you the before and after, before, after, before, after. So this will break out the clumps also a little bit. This will help to randomize the clumps. It will open the, let me show you real close here. It will open the clumps, as you see. It will open the tips of the clumps, and that looks more realistic. And then I add a fine freeze on top, and now we have a very nice result. It's much better, and still everything here in the stack is still procedural. We can go back to any parameter, any node, and if we update something here in guide from mesh, every operator or every node will be recomputed and update the next and the next and the next until it reach the top here, the hair shape, and you will see the final result here. Everything is not destructive except the map. The texture map here is the only thing that is not procedural. Okay, let's move it around. Let's see the transitions here. Yeah, let me, where are my references? References? Where are they? Okay. Okay, let me always on top here. So in this reference, we see here that here in this area we have less density, right? And then we have another little area here where we have even less density. And here is a bit different, but is similar. It's not too far, but let me try to refine that just a little bit, just to show you how I will do it. What is happening? Oh, the touch of the tablet. Now it's better. Let's see, okay. So I'm going to do this in a new layer, just in case. And I'm going to paint a little bit of black here. We want a little bit less density here, not too much. And yeah, and a little bit of white here, a little bit more density here. Let me just here, all right. Okay, let's see how that will look. And I think it have more white here as well. Let's export and see and test. Length node, value parameter, reload. Yeah, exactly. Something like this. Maybe a little bit more wide around this area here, just a little bit more to make it a little bit more dense. Like this. Let me, okay. Should be like this. And let's test. And as you can see, when I update the map, every operator is recomputed. Exactly. Every operator is recomputed. And so we don't have to When we change the map, the only thing that we have to do is click reload here, and every node will be updated. So let's make the brush a little bit smaller. I want to make this part here a little bit more sharp, like this. No, that's too much white. There. And we are still getting this hard edge here. Let me smooth this out a bit more. I think it's here, so I'm going to paint. Well, yeah, I'm going to just paint black. Nice. Okay, so guys, we have been here for 3 hours now, and we still have to make the mustache. So what I'm going to do is leave that for later. But just so you know, I'm going to use all the same techniques that I've been using for the beard. With the only difference is that I'm going to comp the guides using edit guides. I can show that in the next stream, but if you want to test, you can start experimenting with this. If you don't have a license for Ornatrix, you can contact us via the website. You can say that you have seen this, you have seen the live stream, that you want to test what I've been doing, what I've been showing, that you want to do your own test, and just we will give you a 1 month trial for you to play with it. So yeah, I'm going to leave this here for now, and thank you for watching. Before I go, I'm going to show you something real quick. I only do this for visualization in the viewport. You don't have to do this. You don't have to, but if I select the hair and go to the material, to the Lambert, I want to add a color, a root color and a tip color, black at the tip and white or gray at the tips, black at the roots and white at the tips. So for that, I will connect a gradient map in the diffuse color here of the map. Okay, and we have it here. So the thing is that this ramp doesn't is not able to read the UVs of the hairs, so it will not show the gradient in the viewport. It will work for rendering, but not in the viewport. So what I'm going to do is convert the hair to mesh, to polygon mesh. So then we will be able to use that gradient. First, yeah, sure. You just have to add mesh from strands. Mesh from strands will create mesh from strands, of course. So you add it at the top of your stack, and now the hair is a polygon mesh. So we want to have the UVs ready to be used with the gradient. So we have to turn on per strand coordinates. This will create a UV island per each strand, all of them in the same direction. Again, you don't need this for rendering. You don't have to do any of this. You don't need this for rendering. I'm only doing this in the viewport to have this gradient in the viewport. We will find a way to do this without converting the hair to mesh, because of course it is very heavy when we convert all this hair to mesh. It is very heavy in the viewport, and to do all this only for visualization is not very good. It's not a good advice from my part, but just for this one, just so you can see the beard looking more nice, you convert the hair to mesh, to polygon mesh, using mesh from strands and turn on per strand coordinates. You don't have to change anything else there, and we already get the gradient. So if I change the values here, you can see this nice color, and I'm going to set it more or less like this, and decrease this here like that, and now it looks much better. I'm going to make it a bit like this, like that. Again, this is only, I repeat, this is only for visualization in the viewport. You can do this on rendering with Ornatrix. You can do this on rendering without converting the hair to mesh. All that will work in the render without doing anything. This is just for the viewport. We are going to fix that. And when I say we, I mean Marcel, the developer of Ornatrix. So, one last thing that I want to do is I'm going to add another freeze node before I go to add some fly out hairs. I was forgetting about that. So add another freeze node, and now we are going to do the opposite. Here, to add volume, I decreased everything to 0 and volume to 1.1. Now, to add fly away hairs or outlier hairs, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to set the amount to 0 and work with the rest. As you can see, we already have some nice outlier hairs here, this one and this like this. This is what we want to mess up the beard a little bit. This is how it looks without the outlier hairs, and this is how it looks with the outlier hairs. I think I'm going to leave it with those values by default. Yeah. So I'm going to call this outliers. Of course, I'm going to show you how to shade and render this beard nicely with outlier hairs with different colors, how to use the strand channels in the shading network. I'm going to do some interesting things that you will want to see with this beard in the shading. Okay, but for now we want to have some nice shading here in the viewport using mesh from strands. So this is what we have. Another thing that I want to do is okay, we are getting some. Let me turn off mesh from strands for now. Okay, you see that we are getting some hairs going through the mesh. This is because push away from surface is here, but then we added other effect that added deformation to the hairs, and they are not respecting push away from surface anymore because they are on top of it. So we can just move top push away from surface to the top to get rid of this. So let me just click and drag and move to the top, and now those intersections are gone. And there you go. So let's turn mesh from strands back so we get our shading, and there it is. Now, one last thing before I go, just to see how it looks, I'm going to increase the hair count again, maybe to something really crazy like this, and give it a few seconds to recalculate every node. I mean to recompute every node. There you go. I like the shading. You can see like some this pattern here. This appears when you are working with very short hair, but this will not be visible on the rendering. You can't see this on the render. This only happens in the viewport. Let me check something real quick. I think this will extend for another 2 hours, guys. No, just kidding. I want to just check the audio here. Sometimes it breaks. Okay, it's working. So yeah. Okay, let me. One thing that I is about interpolation, about hair interpolation. Here in hair from guides, the interpolation is working fine now, but we may have still room to improve this. Using the new interpolation method that we have here in hair from guides. So I have shown this in other occasions, but I'm going to explain this again. If you go here to guide interpolation, we have several settings. For example, guide selection. Just to make this short, if you want to know exactly what they do, you can go to the documentation. But I'm right now. I can just give you a recommendation to the settings that I use for best result. In guide selection, select barycentric interpolation, let it recompute. Remember that we have a bunch of nodes here that have to be recomputed, bunch of hairs. Okay, and in triangulation type, select nearest neighbor triangulation. This will give us better hair interpolation, and the distribution, the root distribution will be better as well. Okay, so nice, nice. The hair now looks fuller, looks like is covering more of the skin. So I'm going to save that. When you change the hair interpolation and distribution, if you are using a clump node, you should go back to it and click create clumps again to compute it manually, because the clump node is not procedural. So when you make big changes like that, you have to recompute it manually. So there it is. Now every node have recomputed itself. So let's turn back on mesh from strands to get the shading back. And there you go. This is our beard. Let me see if I can improve the shading a bit more. The gradient, maybe exponential up could be better. Exponential down. I don't know, something like that. Just so we can see better the clumps and the freeze. We added some color variation there. So this is it. This is our long beard. In the next session, I'm going to make a shorter version based on the same group. We are just going to make it shorter and make it look nicer, not so messed up like this, but more nice like this, and with the fade effect going from here to around here. So let me see if I can find a reference for that, so you know exactly what I want to show you in the next. Where is my Chrome tab? Here. Beard fade, something like that. Let's see. We are going to make something like this in the next, or like this. A beard with this fade like this, going from the top to the bottom like this. So a shorter, more nicer, more groomed, more elegant version. And yeah, that. And then we will continue also with the mustache here. So for now, this is the final result. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and see you in 1 or 2 weeks, or maybe days. Who knows? Let's see what happens.
If you have any questions after the stream, you can leave a comment here or DM me, and I will try to to reply to all your questions. So see you later. Thank you.